The plantation owner punishes his son Harrison by tricking him into an arranged marriage. But what he did would change everything. Harrison Whitmore was about to discover that disobedience has a price. His father, the feared lord of Riverside Farm, had arranged a marriage that seemed too perfect to be true. And it wasn't. What the young heir didn't know was that his bride harbored a secret capable of destroying or redeeming her soul. Can love flourish where punishment has been sown? Can faith transform a curse into a blessing? The carriage sped along the dusty road as Harrison Whitmore watched the cotton fields stretch as far as the eye could see. At 24, he was the spitting image of his father, tall, broad-shouldered, with wavy brown hair, but only in appearance. "You've challenged me one last time, lad," old Whitmore had thundered 3 days earlier, his blue eyes blazing with fury. "You wanted to free those black people? You wanted to preach about all being equal before God? Very well, let's see if your faith can withstand what I've prepared." Harrison had committed the unforgivable. Influenced by the teachings of the Methodist pastor who had visited the region, he had tried to convince his father to free some elderly slaves. The confrontation had been explosive. Now, as punishment, he would be forced to marry Emily Thornton, daughter of Colonel Augustus Thornton, one of the richest and most ruthless men in the county. "She is a girl of rare beauty," the father had said with a cruel smile. "Educated, refined. You don't deserve such fortune, but the marriage will seal our alliance with the colonel. Refuse, and you will be disinherited. Accept, and you will learn that in this world, son, power speaks louder than prayers." Harrison clutched the battered Bible to his chest. In recent years, his faith had become his only certainty amidst the sea of cruelty he witnessed daily. As a man of God, how could he accept this forced marriage? But as a son, how could he abandon the only family he had? The carriage stopped before Thornton Manor. Imposing white columns rose above the property, and impeccable gardens surrounded it. Harrison disembarked, his legs trembling. A black butler with a sad gaze and a back marked by old scars led him into the main hall, and then he saw her. Emily Thornton stood by the window, the afternoon light turning her blonde hair into liquid gold. She wore a light blue dress that accentuated her stormy sky blue eyes. When she turned, Harrison felt the air leave his lungs. His father hadn't lied about her beauty. She was absolutely stunning. "Miss Thornton," Harrison bowed, his heart racing. "It's an honor." She smiled but didn't answer. She just stared at his lips with disconcerting intensity. Colonel Thornton entered the room, imposing in his dark suit. "Whitmore, welcome. I see you've already met my Emily. Lovely, isn't she? Educated at the best schools in Charleston." He chuckled, a humorless sound. "Your father and I made an excellent deal." Harrison noticed something strange. Emily kept looking at him, but when the colonel spoke, she didn't react. Not a movement of her head, not a glance in her father's direction. "Father," Emily finally spoke, her voice a different tone, her words slightly drawn out. "May I show Mr. Whitmore the gardens?" That's when Harrison understood. The way she observed everyone's lips, the way she pronounced words, the silence that wasn't just shyness. Emily was deaf, and from the malicious smile his future father-in-law gave him, it was clear. Everyone knew, except him. This was the true nature of his father's punishment. The gardens of Thornton Manor were a haven of roses and jasmine, but Harrison barely noticed them. She walked beside Emily, her heart torn between indignation and something she couldn't name. "You seem angry," Emily said softly, watching him. It wasn't a question. She could read every tension in his face. Harrison stopped, forcing himself to look at her. He needed to articulate his words clearly. "Not with you, never with you." Emily lowered her eyes. "But with the situation, with my father, with yours." She sat down on a stone bench. "I know they didn't tell you about me, about my condition." "Condition?" Harrison sat down beside her, his anger growing not against her, but against the men who were using her as a pawn in a cruel game. "You are a person, not a condition." For the first time, Emily's eyes glistened with restrained tears. "You're kind, but I know the truth. My father uses me to seal deals. A flawed daughter, but still valuable as a bargaining chip. And your father, well, I imagine this marriage is some kind of punishment." Harrison picked up his Bible, his hands trembling. How could he explain? How could he confess that yes, it had been a punishment, but that now everything had changed, that seeing it had awakened something in his heart? "My father and I disagree on many things," he began, carefully choosing his words so she could read them. "He believes in the power of money and fear. I believe in the power of faith and the love of Christ. I tried to convince him to treat slaves with humanity. He considered it blasphemy." Emily listened to every word, fascinated. "So you're a true Christian then, not just in appearance." "I try to be. I fail a lot." Harrison opened the Bible to Corinthians. He showed her, love is patient, love is kind. This marriage didn't begin with love, but perhaps we can build something real. "If you're willing." Tears finally streamed down Emily's face. "All my life I've been treated like a burden. My mother died when I was 5. The fever that took my hearing also took hers. My father never forgave me for it. He never learned to speak to me properly. To him, I'm just a problem to be solved." Harrison felt a deep pain in his chest. How many people had been discarded, ignored, treated as less than human? The slaves in the fields. This beautiful woman before him. All victims of cruelty disguised as social order. "Emily!" He said her name for the first time and saw her tremble as she read it on his lips. "Can I promise you something? If you agree to marry me, I promise you will never be just a bargaining chip. You will be my wife, my companion, someone I—" "What do you want, sir?" she whispered. "Someone I will learn to love. Truly." Emily covered her face with her hands. When she pulled them away, there was determination in her eyes. "Then I also make you a promise, Harrison Whitmore. If you give me respect and kindness, I will give you loyalty and perhaps love as well." They shook hands. An agreement sealed not by greed, but by fragile hope and wavering faith. But none of them knew that, from the windows of the mansion, both old Whitmore and Colonel Thornton were watching with satisfied smiles. For them, the plan had worked perfectly. The rebellious son was imprisoned, the troublesome daughter delivered. What they didn't expect was that this marriage, forged in the fire of punishment, would become a furnace of transformation. The wedding took place 3 weeks later in the Riverside Farm chapel. It was a small ceremony, just family and a few allied farmers. Emily wore a white lace dress, the veil partially covering her face. Harrison, in a dark suit, held the Bible as an anchor. The pastor, an elderly man with a weary look, conducted the ceremony quickly. When the time came for the vows, Harrison turned completely to Emily, making sure she could see every word. "I promise to honor her, respect her, and protect her every day of my life." Emily read his lips, her eyes welling with tears. In a clear voice, despite the different tone, she replied, "And I promise to be your loyal companion in joy and in sorrow." When they kissed, it was chaste and brief. But there was something genuine there. A spark of hope amidst the cynicism that surrounded them. The wedding feast was opulent. Old Whitmore and Colonel Thornton toasted, celebrating their business dealings, while slaves served champagne and delicacies. Harrison watched everything with growing unease. Emily, beside him, touched his arm. She discreetly pointed to a young slave girl serving wine. The girl's eyes were swollen, marked by recent tears. Emily picked up a napkin and wrote, "Her name is Ruth. Yesterday her 3-year-old son was sold. She tried to stop it. She was whipped." Harrison felt nauseous. "How do you know how to write so well?" Emily gave a sad smile. "When you can't hear, you learn to observe everything, and writing becomes essential. I see things that others ignore. People forget that I have eyes." That night, when they were finally alone in the rooms prepared for them, Harrison lit all the candles so there would be enough light. He needed Emily to hear his words. "I won't touch you without your consent," he said, sitting down in an armchair some distance from the bed. "I know this marriage was imposed on us. I don't want you to feel—" Emily moved closer, placing a finger on his lips. Then she took paper and pen from the desk. "Harrison, you are different from all the men I have known. But you need to understand something about me. My deafness has taught me to see truths that others ignore. I see genuine goodness in your heart. I also see your struggle between the faith you profess and the cruel world in which you live. You don't need to protect me from who you really are. You just need to be honest." Harrison read the words, something breaking in his chest. "I'm afraid," he confessed, "afraid of becoming my father, afraid that my faith isn't strong enough. I pray every day, but I see so much injustice and I can't change it." Emily wrote quickly, "So let's start by changing what we can. Small things. One person at a time. Like Ruth," he asked. "Like Ruth." That night they talked until dawn. Harrison spoke slowly. Emily wrote. He told her about his conversion 3 years earlier when a Methodist pastor had visited the region preaching about abolition and justice. Emily spoke of her years of solitude, learning to read lips with a hired teacher, observing the world through the invisible glass of her silence. When the sun rose, Harrison felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. And more than that, the timid beginning of something that could be love. But the peace would be short-lived. 2 days later, a discovery would change everything. Harrison woke on the 3rd day of their marriage to find Emily already up, furiously writing in her diary by the window. The morning light illuminated her profile, and he allowed himself a moment to simply observe her. His wife. It still seemed unreal. She noticed his gaze and turned around. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. She rushed to him with the diary, pointing to a passage. "We need to talk, now, in the barn, alone." 15 minutes later, hidden among bales of hay, Emily handed him several sheets of paper hastily scribbled on during the night. "Harrison, I've discovered something terrible. Yesterday, while everyone was at the party, I explored my father's mansion. I've always been invisible to him, so I never properly locked his office. I found documents, letters. Your father and mine aren't just allies in the cotton business. They run an illegal slave trafficking ring. They buy people smuggled from Africa, forge documents saying they were born here, and sell them for exorbitant prices. Harrison, they even violate slavery laws. Ruth, your son wasn't just sold. He was sent to this network." Harrison felt the world spin. "No, my father is cruel, but this is—" Emily grabbed his hands, forcing him to look at her. "It's true. I have proof. I copied names, dates, routes, but there's more. Your father arranged this marriage not just to punish you. He wants you to gradually take over the family business. He believes that with time and away from that religious influence, you will bend. And I was chosen because my father believes that a deaf wife will not be able to alert him or interfere. They think I am incapable of understanding or communicating complex things." Harrison stood up abruptly, pacing in circles. His mind was racing. They completely underestimated her. "Yes, and that's our advantage." "Our?" Emily wrote with trembling hands. "I can't stay quiet knowing this. I know it sounds crazy. I'm just a deaf woman in 1858. But you have faith. Didn't you speak of justice? Are you willing to live what you preach?" Harrison looked at her, really looked. This woman, whom he had known for only a few days, who had been given to him as punishment, was offering him not only love, but purpose, redemption. "If we do this, there's no going back," he said slowly. "My father will disinherit me, yours too. We could be arrested or worse." Emily smiled, and there was steel in that smile. "I'd rather be poor and righteous than rich and complicit." "And you?" Harrison pulled her into a hug. For the first time, he held his wife for real, feeling her heart beat against his. "God help me," he whispered, knowing she wouldn't hear, but feeling she would understand. "Let's do this." In the following weeks, they worked in secret. Harrison used his position as the plantation owner's son to access accounting books and correspondence. Emily, free to move around because no one considered her a threat, observed and recorded everything. They discovered that the next shipment of enslaved people would arrive in 2 weeks, smuggled through the port of Norfolk. Among them was Ruth's son, Josiah, who was only 3 years old. Harrison knew they needed help. He remembered the Methodist pastor who had changed his life, Reverend Thompson, who now led an underground abolitionist movement. One night, he rode to the neighboring town and found the Reverend in a small, humble church. "Son, what you're asking is dangerous," said the old shepherd, his eyes tired but kind. "If we're discovered, we'll both be hanged, and your wife—" "My wife was the one who discovered everything," Harrison interrupted, "and she was the one who insisted on acting." "She's braver than I am," Reverend Thompson smiled. "So God really does work in mysterious ways. Your father wanted to punish you, but he gave you an ally instead. Very well, we have 2 weeks. We'll need a plan." What none of them knew was that a foreman had seen Harrison leave, and he was already running to inform old Whitmore. The storm was approaching, but Harrison didn't realize it yet. He returned to Riverside Farm in the early morning. The plan he had hatched with Reverend Thompson etched in his mind. They would intercept the illegal shipment at the port, free the enslaved people, and deliver the evidence to federal authorities in Richmond. It was dangerous, probably suicidal, but it was the right thing to do. Emily was waiting for him, awake. When he entered the room, she ran to him. Her face was marked with tears. "They discovered," she wrote with trembling hands. "Your father knows you left. You lied, saying you went to town to buy me a present, but he didn't believe you. He sent men to follow you. Harrison, we're in danger." Before he could answer, the door swung open. Old Whitmore entered, his face red with fury, followed by 2 armed foremen. "Traitor!" he thundered. "My own son, conspiring with abolitionists." Harrison stepped in front of Emily. "Dad, stop. You're breaking the law. Illegal trafficking." "Law?" The old man laughed, a terrible sound. "Ion, the law is in this region. I have judges, sheriffs, politicians in my pocket, and you chose to destroy everything because of ridiculous preachings?" Emily pushed Harrison aside and faced her father-in-law. She began to gesture and speak simultaneously, her voice clear despite the different timbre. "You underestimated your son. You underestimated me. You thought I would be a silent and obedient wife, but silence is not weakness." Old Whitmore looked at her with disdain. "A cripple trying to give lessons? Colonel Thornton was right. He should have sent you to an asylum." It was Harrison who exploded. He lunged at his father, his fists clenched. The foremen pointed their guns, but something in Harrison's eyes made them hesitate. "Don't you dare speak of my wife like that," Harrison said, his voice low but deadly. "She has more courage and decency in a single hair on her head than you have in your entire rotten body." Old Whitmore took a step back, surprised by his son's transformation, then his face hardened. "Fine. Did you want to defy us? Did you want to destroy this family? Tomorrow you'll be sent to the sanatorium in Charleston. We'll say you had a nervous breakdown, and she," he pointed to Emily, "will go back to her father's house, who will know how to deal with a disobedient daughter." "No," Harrison said simply. "We will not return, and you will not stop us." Emily grabbed Harrison's Bible from the bedside table and opened it to a specific page. She showed her father-in-law a verse she had marked. "The Lord executes justice and judgment for all the oppressed." Then she quickly wrote it down on a piece of paper and handed it to old Whitmore. Copies of all the evidence have already been sent. If anything happens to us, it will reach the federal authorities. You can arrest us, you can kill us, but you can't stop what has already begun. It was a lie. They hadn't sent anything yet, but the doubt that crossed old Whitmore's face was worth everything. "Get out," he said finally, his voice icy. "Get off my property now. You have 1 hour. After that, my men have orders to shoot." Harrison and Emily ran. They grabbed only the essentials: documents, some clothes, the Bible. In the stable, while they were saddling the horses, Ruth appeared from the shadows. "Mr. Harrison," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Is it true? Are you going to try to save my Josiah?" Harrison looked at Emily, who nodded. "Ruth, come with us. We can't leave you here." "But sir, if I run away—" "She's not running away," Emily interrupted, her voice firm. "She's being freed. By us. Now let's go. We don't have time." The three rode through the night toward the town where Reverend Thompson awaited them. Behind them, Riverside Farm faded into darkness. Harrison looked back one last time. There was no regret in his heart, only a strange mixture of fear and peace. Emily rode beside him, her face determined in the moonlight. She turned to him and smiled. They needed no words. They had chosen, and now they would live or die by that choice. Norfolk Harbor smelled of salt, fish, and something darker, the stench of human fear. Harrison, Emily, and Ruth hid behind crates, watching the ship that had just docked. It was almost midnight. Reverend Thompson and 6 trusted men, small farmers, merchants, even a lawyer, waited in position. Emily touched Harrison's arm and pointed. Men were coming down from the ship, carrying chains. And chained, staggering along the plank, came about 20 people. Men, women, children. Their empty eyes told stories of horror that no language could express. Ruth stifled a sob. Among the children was a small boy with skin as dark as ebony. "Josiah," she whispered, "my baby." Harrison squeezed Emily's hand. This was the moment. Now or never. He closed his eyes for a brief second. "Lord, give us courage. May your justice prevail." Reverend Thompson gave the signal. Suddenly, flashlights went off from all sides. "Halt! In the name of federal law, you are under arrest for illegal human trafficking." Chaos erupted. The drug dealers drew their weapons, but they were outnumbered. Gunshots rang out. Harrison ran toward the chained people, Emily beside him. She had the keys, stolen from her father's office. They began to untie the chains, one by one. "Run!" Harrison shouted. "Follow the Reverend. He'll take you to safety." That's when Harrison saw his father. Old Whitmore emerged from the shadows of the pier, a rifle in his hands, hatred transforming his face into a demonic mask. "You destroyed everything," he yelled, pointing the gun at Harrison. "My own blood, you blood traitor." Emily saw the danger before Harrison did. Without hesitation, she threw herself in front of her husband. The shot rang out. Emily fell. "No!" Harrison's scream tore through the night. He took her in his arms, his hands turning red with her blood. "Emily, no, please, no!" She looked at him, her eyes still conscious. She raised her trembling hand to his face, and her lips moved. It was worth it. Harrison didn't know if she had spoken or if he had simply read her lips. It didn't matter. Tears streamed freely as he pressed the wound on her shoulder. "Don't leave me. Emily, please, you can't." Reverend Thompson was beside them, tearing fabric to make a tourniquet. The bullet went through. "She'll survive, Harrison. She'll survive." All around, the port was being taken over. Federal officials, those not bought by Whitmore, were finally arriving. The old man was captured trying to escape. Colonel Thornton was also found at a nearby inn waiting to receive the merchandise. Ruth found Josiah among the freed people. Mother and son embraced, weeping. Harrison watched through his own tears as Emily lay faint but breathless in his arms. The following months were a blur of court cases and testimonies. The evidence Emily had collected combined with the sting operations at the port, destroyed the trafficking network. Old Whitmore and Colonel Thornton were sentenced to 20 years in prison. Their properties were confiscated. Harrison and Emily were left with nothing. But not exactly nothing. A year later, they lived in a modest house on the outskirts of Richmond. Harrison worked as a carpenter. Emily sewed and, to everyone's surprise, taught lip reading to other deaf people in the area. Her courage had inspired others. Her silence had become a powerful voice. Ruth and Josiah lived with them. Ruth cooked and took care of the house, but as a free and paid servant. Josiah, now 5 years old, was learning to read with Emily. One Sunday afternoon, after service at the small Methodist church they now attended, Harrison and Emily walked hand in hand. She was 6 months pregnant. He couldn't stop smiling. Emily pulled out paper and pen, she always carried them with her, and wrote, "Remember when we met? You said you would try to truly love me." Harrison picked up the pen and wrote underneath, "I didn't need to try. It happened, and it happens more every day." She wrote again, "Your father wanted to punish us. Do you think he succeeded?" Harrison thought of the cold nights, the hard work, the poverty. He also thought of the Sundays filled with faith, Josiah's smile, Emily's hand in his. He thought of the purpose he had finally found. He wrote, "He gave us the greatest gift, even unintentionally. He gave us each other. He gave us purpose. He gave us the chance to truly live our faith. No, he didn't punish us. He set us free." Emily read, smiled, and pulled him in for a kiss. She couldn't hear the world around her, the bird's song, the distant laughter of children, the wind in the trees, but she could feel. And in that moment, what I felt was complete. Harrison looked up at the sky. "Thanks," he prayed silently, "for turning my curse into a blessing, for using our brokenness for your glory." The story of the plantation owner who punished his son by arranging an impossible marriage was already circulating in Virginia. But the ending was different from what was expected. It wasn't a story of tragedy, it was a story of redemption, of love born of faith, of justice achieved through sacrifice. And decades later, when Emily could finally hear, no longer with her ears but with her heart in heaven, she would know that the silence of her earthly life had a purpose. It had transformed a man, saved lives, glorified God. Punishment had become a blessing, silence, a song, and love, arranged by men, ordained by God. Did you enjoy this story of faith, courage, and true love? Subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories that strengthen the soul. Leave a comment telling us what most impacted you in Harrison and Emily's journey. Share it with someone who needs to believe that God transforms curses into blessings. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new stories. God bless you and your family 20 years later. Richmond, Virginia, 1878. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of the house, now larger and more comfortable. Harrison, 44 years old with a few grey hairs at his temples, was fitting frames to chairs for a school that was being built in the community. Emily entered the workshop carrying a tray of lemonade. At 42, she remained beautiful, with only a few wrinkles around her eyes, wrinkles from smiling a lot. She placed the tray on the table and touched her husband's shoulder. He turned and smiled. 20 years together, and his heart still raced when he saw her. Emily pointed to the backyard where 3 children were playing, 17-year-old Sarah, 15-year-old Samuel, and little 12-year-old Grace. Josiah, now a 24-year-old young man, was with them, teaching Samuel how to fix a fence. She picked up her slate. She now preferred writing with chalk instead of paper, and wrote, "Remember when we thought we'd never have anything?" Harrison laughed. "And we don't have it. Not the way the world counts wealth." Emily shook her head and quickly wrote, "We have everything. Love, family, purpose, freedom, faith, that's everything." Ruth appeared at the door. now a woman in her 40s, free for 2 decades. "Mr. Harrison, a letter has arrived. It's from the governor." Harrison opened the envelope, Emily reading over his shoulder. It was an invitation. The new governor, a progressive man elected amidst the changes following the Civil War, was inviting Harrison and Emily to an honorary ceremony. "They want to honor us," Harrison said, astonished. "For our role in exposing the illegal trafficking before the war. They say we helped change opinions, that our story inspired—" Emily interrupted him by touching his face. She had tears in her eyes, but they were tears of joy. She wrote, "It wasn't us. It was God using broken vessels." "Or broken vessels make the best music," Harrison said, repeating something Reverend Thompson had told them years before. That evening, they gathered everyone around the table for dinner. Harrison, Emily, their 3 children, Ruth and Josiah. Before eating, Harrison asked everyone to hold hands. "Father, may I say the prayer today?" Samuel asked. Emily didn't hear the question, but she saw her son's lips and nodded in proud approval. Samuel closed his eyes. "Lord, thank you for this family. Thank you because what evil men planned for evil, you transformed into good. Thank you for my mother, who taught me that silence can be strength. Thank you for my father, who showed me that faith without action is dead. Bless this food and us. Amen." Emily didn't hear the words, but she felt the vibration of the prayer through their joined hands, and he felt more. He felt the love that filled that simple room, that modest table, those grateful hearts. After dinner, Harrison and Emily sat on the porch as they did every night. He picked up the old, worn Bible, now 20 years older than usual. He opened it to a marked page and showed it to Emily. "We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him," Romans 8:28. Emily nodded, then wrote on her slate, "When your father arranged our marriage as punishment, he didn't know he was orchestrating our redemption. When my father handed me over as a burden, he didn't know he was giving me wings." Harrison kissed her forehead. 20 years, Emily. If you could go back, would you change anything?" She thought for a long moment. She thought of the pain, the fear, the blood on the Norfolk docks. She thought of the hungry nights in her early years, the prejudice she faced, the closed doors. Then he thought of his children's eyes, of Josiah's liberated smile, of the dozens of people they had helped over the years, of the community they had built based on faith and justice. He wrote only one word: nothing. Harrison held her hand, intertwining their fingers. And there, on the porch of that simple house in Richmond, 2 survivors, 2 fighters, 2 lovers rested in peace. The punishment had become the greatest blessing. Silence had found its voice. And the love arranged by men had, in the end, been ordained by God from the beginning.